Hey everyone, it's Alexander Robinson. Welcome to the channel. This is my review for Pokémon 3, the movie, which came out in the year 2000 in Japan under the name Lord of the Unknown Tower, Entei. In the US, it came out in 2001 under the name Spell of the Unknown, so not that much of a difference in terms of titles. The movie takes place during the Johto Journey season, which is the third in the anime overall, but the first in Ashe's journey across the Johto region. The movie opens up with a little girl named Molly, whose father is a Pokémon researcher investigating the mysterious legendary Pokémon Unknown, and every single Pokémon fan in the world cackled with laughter at the thought of Unknown being a legendary Pokémon. Anyway, her father disappears, and this is devastating for Molly because her mother disappeared before the events of this movie. So she is now an orphan. She comes across her dad's findings of Unknown. Basically, they're like little wooden pieces that form unknown characters, but the Pokémon suddenly manifest, and she uses the Unknown to pretty much control her thoughts. She creates a giant crystal fortress around her. She manifests the legendary beast Entei and treats it as her father. And you might be thinking, how are Ashe, Misty, and Brock involved in this adventure? Well, Ashe's mom actually was friends with Molly's father, so she and Professor Oak end up visiting Greenfield around the same time Ashe and his friends show up. And then Entei kidnaps Ashe's mom, possesses her into thinking that she's Molly's mother, takes her to the house, and Ashe and his friends have to go there to try to save his mother. Kind of a pretty underwhelming plot for a Pokémon movie. But if it results in my favorite of the movies, at least the ones that I've seen, then I'm not going to complain too much. Last week when I reviewed Pokémon the movie 2000, I mentioned that this was the movie, Pokémon 3, that I watched consistently on repeat. I owned it on VHS along with Mewtwo Strikes Back, but I think this movie was more appealing to me because of all the new Pokémon, which is ironic because I didn't start playing the games until Ruby and Sapphire came out. I did play a little bit of Pokémon Yellow when it first came out on the Game Boy, but I have never played Pokémon Gold or Silver. I'm just now playing Pokémon Crystal on the 3DS since the 3DS and Wii U virtual console stores are about to close up, so I decided to snatch that game before it was too late. But anyway, despite not playing any of those games, I did play a lot of Pokémon Stadium 2 on the Nintendo 64 at a friend's house, and I just loved all the new creature designs. So this movie in particular was the one I rewatched the most. Similar to how Attack of the Clones, when it came out, was the Star Wars movie I rewatched the most because it was the new thing. But putting all that nostalgia aside and looking at this from the perspective of an adult, this movie actually surprisingly holds up. I mean, it's not high art, it's a Pokémon movie at the end of the day, so it's very much tailored towards a specific crowd, but I think it does a few things better than the last two movies did. For one, it's a very simple story. The world is not at stake, Mewtwo's not trying to destroy the world, and some greedy, egotistical collector is not trying to destroy the world just because his own ego wants 3 legendary birds and a weirder looking bird. The plot is more about this little girl who's trying to cope with the loss of both of her parents. And she does this in a very unhealthy manner that eventually ropes Ashe into this adventure, and he actually feels more organic to this story than he did in Pokémon 2000. Mainly because his mother's been kidnapped, so he has more personal stakes this time around. And once again, it's just really fun to see Ashe, Misty, and Brock together. I know it's my nostalgia talking, and normally I hate that, but I just love seeing this trio together and going on all these adventures. I also like the really weird tone of this movie. It's childish, but also very twisted and demented, with Molly basically having a breakdown and she's shut everyone off from the outside world. It's really twisted in a way that only the Japanese could do. And I'm not too familiar with the differences between the Japanese version and the 4Kids version, but just based off the 4Kids version, it does keep a lot of that twisted mentality, and there's something amusing about it, even though throughout a lot of this movie, Molly can be just a flat-out brat. And I think the tone overall is why this movie was a little more interesting to me, just because it had that very dark and childlike mixture. The animation is still pretty good, especially during the Pokemon battles. I really do enjoy the battle at the beginning of the movie between Ashe and Lisa. It's just these two trainers in a park. We get a lot of these wide shots of the Pokemon fighting. They use the environment to their advantage. The battles between Brock, Misty, and Molly's dream Pokemon are a little cheap, but they're very well animated, and I just like with these movies, they don't have the anime backgrounds or the speed lines, however you call it. I'm not much of an anime watcher, so I'm kind of dumb when it comes to the phrases. But anyway, it just feels more natural, it's more dynamic. And then the battle between Entei and Charizard is pretty much the chef's kiss when it comes to Pokemon battles, at least in terms of the movies that I've seen. It's very exciting. Seeing Ashe ride Charizard while trying to defeat Entei is pretty neat, and there's a lot of tension-filled moments every time Charizard is almost about to get impaled on one of the spikes. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty epic battle. However, the movie does have its share of issues. While it might be my favorite of the Pokemon movies that I've seen, I can't deny that it has problems. The music this time around in the 4Kids version is pretty lame. Pokemon 2000 was a step up in terms of music for the US version, but this one, it feels very much like the score for a Nintendo 64 game that's trying to sound orchestral, but you can clearly tell that it's a synth score. It doesn't feel right. And also, Team Rocket is just absolutely useless in this movie. Now, their jokes are a little better this time around, and there admittedly is something amusing about seeing these three idiots wind up in these situations and pretty much become invincible. Entei shoots down their balloon, and they flat out crash into the side of the tower, and they're just fine. I know it's an animated series, I know they're cartoons technically, but there's just something amusing about how they keep surviving all these horrific incidents. But the most that Team Rocket ever does is save Ashe, and their reasoning is because if anything happened to Ashe, they'd be out of show business, meaning the anime would end, and that's kind of lame. The last issue I have with this movie is something that I addressed earlier. The decision to make Unknown the big threat of the movie and this super powerful legendary Pokemon is a joke, because Unknown is really one of the very worst Pokemon ever made, and only exists because each form of the Unknown creates words. That's about it. That's the only reason anybody even tries to catch Unknown in the games, but whatever. Overall, rewatching this movie as an adult, it still holds up. Again, it's not a great movie by any means, and there's certainly a handful of problems, but it's definitely one that I could see myself rewatching if I were to revisit any of the Pokemon movies. That being said though, I'm still going to say watch at your own risk, because if you're not into Pokemon, this is not the movie that will change your mind. I personally like it a lot myself as a Pokemon movie, but if you're not into the fandom, then there's no reason for you to watch this at all. However, if you are a Pokemon fan, it's a very fun movie, low stakes, but you're invested in Ashe trying to get his mom back and save her from the unknown. It's a lot of fun. And of course, there was a short film that played in front of this movie, this time around it being Pikachu and Pichu. Much like the other two shorts, it's cute, it's harmless, but it's got a lot of filler, so I don't have much else to say outside of two things. The first is that at the end of the short, Ashe tells Pikachu that it's the day that they first met and became friends. And I know a lot of us Pokemon fans joke about Ashe being forever 10, and just recently the creator of the anime confirmed that Ashe is still 10 years old, but the fact that this short takes place on the 1-year anniversary of when Ashe and Pikachu met, it's like, hey, Ashe is 11 years old. Obviously, that's been thrown out the window, and these movies and short films kind of exist in their own continuity, but I feel like that's something that is a nice touch. The other thing is something that I hate, and it's no fault of the short. It's the scene where the Pichu brothers use Thundershock on a Houndour, but end up fainting themselves, and then the narrator goes, "Too bad Pichu can't use electric attacks without shocking themselves." And The reason I hate this is because it leads into Pichu taking damage in the Super Smash Bros. Games. I know that's not fair to the short at all, and I know I'm just going down a nerdy, nitpicking hole, but come on. Really? You bring in that aspect of the Pokemon anime, but we can't get the cool Mewtwo armor as a costume? Come on. Whatever, that doesn't matter at the end of the day, and I just became a nitpicking nerd for that moment. So, same rating, watch at your own risk. It's cute, it's charming, but it's pretty much the same as the other shorts. And there you go, that's my review for Pokémon 3, the movie. And this was actually the last Pokémon movie to get a full theatrical release in the United States up until Detective Pikachu in 2019. However, I did promise that I'd be reviewing the first 5 Pokémon movies and not the first 3, so next week we're going to be talking about Pokémon Forever, which out of these 5 movies was the only one I did not see in theaters. So we'll get into that next week. But until then, I want to know what you guys think about Pokémon 3 the movie. If you've seen it, what did you think? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day and take care of yourselves.